Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 6 2024 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was a good week overall. For my predictions through 14 games in the first bye week of the season, the bye week slate, I went 8-6 both ways. So I'm very happy about that. 8-6 against the spread, 8-6 straight up. That equals 57.1% straight up and against the spread. First time in about 5 weeks I had a winning record against the spread, and straight up another winning week. Not a double-digit one. Harder with some of the lower margin, but and of all the games kind of went through their processes, who would have thought, even though I still believe the Patriots got robbed. Okay, the Patriots got robbed because that guy had his foot in the end zone. His ankle was down. Okay, like that should have been a touchdown, and I won't cry about that forever. But kudos to the Dolphins. They won the game, but they haven't had a passing touchdown since week 2. So just a fun fact there. They haven't been able to throw the ball in the end zone. But I digress. But who would have thought the Giants going into Seattle with the way they've been playing and the roster they had? Who would have thought they would have outright beat the Seahawks? Cardinals, Niners, weird division game. Kudos to the Cardinals. Probably my worst spread pick of the week. Should have thought about, maybe the Niners coming back to earth. The Niners' injuries have caught up to them. But, getting 8-6, matching records, winning records, I will take that. But now overall for the year against the spread, I am 33-42-3 against the spread. And straight up now, I am 45-33. So that equals 44.2% against the spread and 57.7% straight up. So definitely kind of like my usuals for the year. A little disappointing through 5 weeks. Haven't had a double-digit week since like week 1. So hopefully, with this week coming up, hopefully I can change that. The picks, for the most part, seem pretty sound for the most part. Though there are some toss-up games that I can definitely see a lot of other prognosticators picking. There are some progs that I would like to shout out very quickly. Let me bring up the people that I wanted to shout out. I've watched them along with the usual progs that I have talked about in my videos from the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. I also did want to shout out the I wanted to shout out Nice and Blunt. I watched his predictions and he's a great prognosticator. And I also did want to shout out the individual by the name of, give me 1 second here. Let's see. I also wanted to shout out, I know his name is Jay something, but I just wanted to get it correct. There we go. The Jay All Day Sports Show. So I wanted to shout out Nice and Blunt. Check out his channel and Jay All Day Sports Show. Those are 2 new people I've started watching. Very good prognosticators themselves. Just want to shout them out as well, along with all the other NFL YouTube prognosticators, as I usually do. I also did want to say next week the video will come out again on Tuesday, and I will give a full video next Tuesday because I'm off that whole day, so I will have time to give my thorough explanations for all the games. So I just wanted to give everybody a happy update about that for my Week 7 video, it'll be a more traditional video like I've given out over the last several years. But let's see. But the buys real quickly. The Chiefs, the Rams, the Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Rams, Miami Dolphins, and the Minnesota Vikings are on bye this week. So if you have Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, Stafford, the Rams defense, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Darnold, Jefferson, Jones, the Vikings defense, Jason Sanders, Havarkic, Bucker, the Viking. If you have any of those players, bench them because they will not be playing this weekend. So let me get through my picks very quickly, and I'll give some quick analysis. So on Thursday, when the 2-3 San Francisco 49ers travel to Seattle to take on the 3-2 Seattle Seahawks for possible NFC West control, the San Francisco 49ers are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here, minus 3.5, and San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-4 Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Chicago to take on the 3-2 Chicago Bears in London, England, for the Jaguars' annual trip to London, because those are probably the only genuine NFL fans that they have built over the last 12 years. The Chicago Bears are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Chicago here minus 2.5, and Chicago straight up. And then the next game, when the 2-3 Arizona Cardinals travel to Green Bay to take on the 3-2 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 5.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Green Bay Packers here straight up to win. Then I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals plus 5.5. Then the next game, when the 2-3 Indianapolis Colts travel to Tennessee to take on the 1-3 Tennessee Titans. The Indianapolis Colts are 1-point favorites in this game. Regardless if it is Joe Flacco or Anthony Richardson starting this game, I'm going to take Indianapolis here -1 and Indianapolis straight up. I also just want to point out as well, it doesn't matter if Will Levis or Brett Rudolph is starting this game. I will take the Indianapolis Colts regardless of whoever's starting a quarterback for either team. Then the next game, when the 4-1 Houston Texans travel to New England, take on the 1-4 New England Patriots. The Houston Texans are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me the Houston Texans here -7 and Houston Texans straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to New Orleans, take on the 2-3 New Orleans Saints. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, surprisingly, even with the injury last night to Derek Carr, with his oblique injury, and we don't know how long the prognosis is. We'll find out today as he gets an MRI. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 2-point dogs in this game, which I think is a great spread pick. So I'm going to jump on this very quickly and give me Tampa Bay here +2 and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-4 Cleveland Browns travel to Philadelphia to take on the 2-2 Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are 8.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here -8.5 and Philadelphia straight up. The next game, in the Battle of the Beltway, the game of the weekend in my opinion, when the 4-1 Washington Commanders travel up the I-95 Beltway to take on the 3-2 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Washington here +6.5, but I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens straight up. Then the next game in an AFC West matchup, when the 2-2 Los Angeles Chargers travel to Denver to take on the 3-2 Denver Broncos. The Los Angeles Chargers are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers here -3 and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-2 Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Las Vegas to take on the 2-3 Las Vegas Raiders. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Pittsburgh here -3 and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-1 Detroit Lions travel to Dallas to take on the 3-2 Dallas Cowboys. The Detroit Lions are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Dallas +3.5. Then the next game, when the 3-2 Atlanta Falcons travel to Carolina to take on the 1-4 Carolina Panthers. The Atlanta Falcons are 6-point favorites in this game, giving the Atlanta Falcons here -6 and the Atlanta Falcons straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-4 Cincinnati Bengals travel to New York to play the 2-3 New York Giants. The Cincinnati Bengals are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Cincinnati here -3.5 and Cincinnati straight up. And lastly, in the Aaron Rodgers, oh no, deja vu game, when the 3-2 Buffalo Bills travel to New York to take on the 2-3 New York Jets. The Buffalo Bills are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Buffalo Bills here -2.5 and Buffalo straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The San Francisco 49ers over the Seattle Seahawks. This is a game to where, when I look at what the Niners have done over the last several games, it's very awkward. It's very clunky. It doesn't feel right. They've lost 3 of 4. They can't seem to get out of their own way. The defense, losing Wilkes seems like a big, moment there. But it's just where, I don't know what this Niners team is. And it's very weird because where I thought the NFC West could have been the best division in football, it's very much a mid-division. To where you can, minus the Rams, which you could argue, if the Rams were fully healthy, they probably are the best team in that division through what they've shown through the first 5 weeks of the season. They are 1-4, but they have been basically in every game. And if you add Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua to that or Cooper, Puka, and Tyler Higbee to that roster, you have a completely different team, and probably by far, I think, the best team in the division. But I digress. But, I look at the Niners here, and I kind of feel like they need to kind of right the ship at this moment, because it could take a significant nosedive with them playing the Chiefs off a bye next week in San Fran, to where the Niners are going to be possibly fighting for a wildcard spot, which I did not expect them to be in at this point. And look, Seattle, they played a overall interesting game. Hated the 4th down call on the 4th and 1 at your own 35 when you're down 7 in a game where you still have 11 minutes left. And, I hated the play action pass because literally Brian Burns goes unblocked and knocks Geno right on his rear end. That gives the Giants a field goal, which basically was arguably the difference in the game to a point, because if let's say they don't score, that field goal at the end, it doesn't take Myers getting his field goal blocked by Isaiah Simmons that cost them the game. But, in this game, though, look, the Niners usually, against Seattle in the Pete Carroll era, the Niners usually have the Seahawks number, and they played pretty well. And Mike McDonald, for as well as that was, I think after what the Giants did, I feel like the Niners should have enough gumption and enough grit going against Seattle, where they want to, and Wusu, who's already been ruled out for Thursday's game. I'm going to take San Francisco here. Better coach. Going to trust it against the wall. They'll play better. And I just think with Seattle's vibe right now, losing both games the way they did, I think Seattle is going to come kind of back to the mean of where they are. So that's why I like San Francisco here minus 3.5. It's San Francisco straight up. The next game, Chicago Bears over the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is one to where I love what the Bears have shown over the last few weeks. If you watch what the Bears have done, week by week by week, they're getting better. The defense has been consistently great all throughout the year. Put up a fantastic effort against the Panthers. Pretty much rolled them from the jump. Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore. Like, you're starting to look at the Bears roster, and it's like, okay, we're starting to pick it up. We're starting to roll it together. And the Jaguars, look, I think one of the interesting things is that Jags defense is god-awful. Okay? Joe Flacco, look, he had a field day. He completed 75% of his passes, 353 touchdowns. Literally, that fumble at the end, you could argue, or the fumble at the end of the first half, cost the Colts the game because it came down to a field goal, even though I know they tied it. But still, like, that field goal at the end probably could have maybe given the Colts the victory. Even though I do want to say one story about Jacksonville, or two. Evan Ingram, I don't know why he can't play. I know he's been hurt, but basically he hasn't played except week 1. And hopefully he should be able to play because I need him in fantasy, but let me stop my diatribe there. And two, Tank Bigsby is starting to have a bigger role in the offense than Travis Etienne, which is kind of a concern because, like, Travis Etienne's your first-round pick. And the fact that Tank Bigsby had over 100 yards and actually looked fundamentally better, I, have, some concerns. And Brian Thomas, he is starting to emerge as clearly the best receiver on this team. He had a fantastic game, and I objectively think that's a positive. But the key thing is that you were playing a backup quarterback and a team that doesn't really have a great defense, especially with Buckner being out and some of the other secondary injuries the Colts have suffered. This Bears defense is pretty much fully healthy. And I'm going to trust what the Bears have defensively to limit William Trevor Lawrence, as he has had most of the other weeks, and that's why I'm going to go with the Bears to win. Could the Jaguars' experience in London help them kind of in a way? Sure, but I feel like that will help against the Patriots, who are a much weaker team compared to the Chicago team as of this moment. So that's why I like Chicago here, minus 2.5, and Chicago straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Arizona Cardinals. This is a game to where, I don't know what to think of the Arizona Cardinals. Through 5 games, except one against the Commanders where they got just absolutely blown out, the Cardinals are not a bad football team. Like, you can watch, they're 500 in those 4 games. We're basically in every game had a big comeback against a division rival that nobody was going to expect, especially when Lenore returned that 61-yard touchdown. But I just, in a weird way, on a week-to-week basis, or I still might be bitter about what happened against the Commanders when I picked them for the only time this year, I just can't trust them to win games. Could they beat the Packers? Sure. The Packers, Josh Jacobs has kind of been mid. Emmanuel Wilson's made some plays. The Romeo Dobbs situation, if you follow anything with the Packers, I actually thought that was a problem because I thought the Packers did not have a diva wide receiver. And I thought that was going to be a positive. But now with Romeo going through his stuff, he was suspended for the last game. They said he's going to be active and they're going to try to move forward. I don't think that's going to matter. Christian Watson is an injury-prone bust. And the Packers defense has been pretty effective in most parts. McKinney's been the standout, 5 straight picks, but they need Jair Alexander back this weekend to cover the best offensive weapon on the Cardinals, which is Marvin Harrison. And, I look at this Cardinal-Packer game, and look, the last time I believe Arizona went into Green Bay, they actually won. That was one of Josh Rosen's, I believe that was the last time, that was Mike McCarthy's last game as the Packers head coach, because I believe he got fired after that loss to Josh Rosen. So the Cardinals have a little bit of experience the last time going into Green Bay and winning. I just feel like this is a different Packers team, and I just, for some odd reason, can't trust the Cardinals to win. I can trust the Cardinals to cover. Like, again, 5.5, like, with how the Cardinals play, how their defense is, of how Jordan Love is, can be turnover prone at times. Like, 5.5 seems like a lot, and they They won their last game by 5, so you could cover that. They covered the underdog covered last week, so. But I'm gonna take Green Bay here to win, just because like it's Lambeau. Trust the Packers staff a bit more, and I just can't wrap my arms around the Cardinals to pick a win just yet. So again, would I be surprised if Arizona won? Not at all. But I'm gonna take Arizona to cover, but I'll take Green Bay to win off of those metrics. So that's why Green Bay here to win straight up at Arizona plus 5.5. Next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Tennessee Titans. This is one to where I trust the Colts system and coaching better than the Titans system and coaching. And I think that's regardless of who's at quarterback, who's at running back, even though they could not really run the ball to save their lives. So I think Jonathan Taylor being able to get healthy will be a huge help because the Titans can take advantage of that with the run game that they have, especially while Jacksonville was able to run the ball. They were able to run for about $130 with Tony Pollard, who's had some moments. I think that'll be the ultimate neutralizer. I would say this. If the best matchup would be, I think, Joe versus Levis, if you're a Colts fan. If it's Joe versus Mason, I think Joe has more arm talent and a little bit more, in his arm. If it's Mason and Richardson, that's going to be kind of a weird one because you could argue Mason, he doesn't have the upside that Richardson does, but he has a lot more fundamentals and core that I feel like, they could beat the Colts with Mason Rudolph at the helm if he starts. If it's Will Levis and Richardson, which I think it will be, that's going to be an ugly game, and I'm just going to trust the coaching in that regard either way. If it's Levis and Flacco, the Titans have no shot. No offense, Keith Bailey, good friend of mine. Shout out to him. Sorry, buddy, for your Titans having to watch Will Levis play week after week after week. It's time, it's time to end it sooner or later. But Shador, suck for Shador. But I'm going with the Colts here to win this game. Even however the quarterback matchup is, I'm just going to trust Sykin's staff over Callahan's staff from what I've seen. I think the Colts get a win to get to 500, and I just think the Colts are just a weird 500 team that you don't really know how to quantify if they're any good or if they're any bad. And, the Colts, could hang around for a wild card spot. I would say that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they hung on because just, like, how their schedule is and just how they play. It's like, the Colts are not a bad watch, but it's odd to wrap your, arms around them, or just it's odd to quantify how good or bad they are. So that's like Indianapolis here -1, Indianapolis straight up. The next game, one of the easiest picks of the week, Houston over New England. New England's the worst team in football. They really can't, have an offense. Stevenson had that one touchdown run. They really couldn't generate an offense outside of Henry and that one touchdown, which I was still. The defense played well enough, but you're playing a Houston offense, even without Nico Collins, that just has much more significant talent. I think D'Amico understands what, to do in these situations. Shout out to Kaimi Fairbairn, though. 59-yard field goal, probably one of the longest in his career, one to win the game in a clutch ending situation. And I just think the Patriots, they do not win a lot of home games anymore. And I just trust the Texans with their roster, their consistency. Hopefully they get Joe Mixon back. The Texans should be able to go into New England and get a comfortable win to get to 5-1 and continue to show that they are the second best team in the AFC, in my opinion. So that's like Houston, you're -7. Houston straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the New Orleans Saints. This is a game, ladies and gentlemen, to where I am taking Tampa Bay based off the fact that I feel like in the game against Atlanta on Thursday, they played a pretty fundamentally good game. Offensively, they put up 30 points. Baker had about 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mike Evans had 2 touchdowns. They really couldn't run the ball. And by the way, the Bucs got robbed of that game due to Grady Jarrett having a clear and blatant face mask on Bucky Irving, which I would argue caused the fumble, which got the Falcons the ball. And, even though, again, Kirk Cousins, he did throw for 500 yards, and he was great. But, I look at Tampa Bay and say, okay, they are 3-2, and I thought they were, going into last week, I would have asked anybody, I would have said, they're the second best team in the NFC. Now, I'm kind of at the point to where I think they're teetering between 4th and 5th. And I'd probably give it to Atlanta just off the head-to-head, off of what we just saw. I'd probably put them at 5. And, I don't know where Tampa is going to go. I still think they can win the division. But dropping, 2 back-to-back division games would be very tough. But also I just feel like with New Orleans, they're in a spot to where now they've dropped 3 straight. And after that dynamic start to where I was kind of convinced and everybody else was convinced that this Saints team could maybe do something, now I've realized that they're becoming the southern version of the Chokers. And they just can't seem to close games. 3 straight tough losses. They have some offensive weapons. The defense can make some plays. Also, shout out to that big defensive lineman last night who had an incredible run at his size. Like, he was running like 18 miles an hour at his weight off that tipped pass from the tip pass Juju pick. But I look at New Orleans here. I think the other big thing of why I'm taking Tampa, now with the information that I know, the Derek Carr injury is significant, and I think if he can't play, and you're telling me Spencer Rattler has to have his first career start against the Bulls blitz in that dome, even though I know it's a home game for them, that's going to be a tall order for Clint Kubiak to try to make and, plays for that, So, if Carr plays, I still think it's going to be tough because he's not going to be 100%, but I think it gives the Saints a much better chance. But I'm taking Tampa here. Better, healthier team. Trust the defense a bit more, and I just think the New Orleans Saints are just not in a good, not in a good state right now because I feel like they're starting to realize like they are just choking games consistently on a basis that is kind of starting to get in their psyche, and it will probably cost Dennis Allen his job if this continues to happen. So that's why I like Tampa Bay here +2 and Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, Philadelphia over Cleveland. Cleveland's a train wreck right now. After watching the Raider game, I thought, okay, maybe Deshaun has a little bit of hope, and the Commanders' defense hadn't been great. But after watching what happened against the Commanders, that team is just god-awful in every sense of the word. It doesn't matter if Nick Chubb comes back or not. I believe that the Philadelphia Eagles, even through all their strife, they should be able to get A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson back. Even if they don't give one of those three assets back, I think the Eagles have enough gumption with their offensive line. They have enough confidence in what they have. And also, Jalen's just been playing better than Deshaun is right now. The Eagles at home should be able to roll the Browns to get to a nice, comfortable victory, which will put the Browns in a further spiral of, Stefanski and this entire staff getting fired, and maybe the GM getting fired, and them having the worst quarterback situation in the league, because they still have to pay Deshaun Watson $150 million, and you can make the point that they should think about drafting his replacement, but they're not going to, because they are committed to Deshaun Watson for the rest of eternity, for at least the next 2 years. So, as horrible as that is. Sounds like Philadelphia here, -8.5, Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Battle of the Beltway, the Ravens over the Commanders. Two things here. Two things. The biggest thing to me why I'm taking the Ravens here is we do very well against rookie quarterbacks. And look, Jaden Daniels has been outstanding. He's the offensive rookie of the year through 5 weeks. I think he deserves some MVP consideration. On Sunday, he did not play as fundamentally clean or as solid a game as he has played before. But, I think the Commanders can definitely, how they've, been scoring offensively, how Kingsbury's been playing, they definitely can make some noise and make this probably, one of the more entertaining games. But the Ravens, Harbaugh typically does well against rookies. And I feel like when you have Lamar on the other side, it's basically a mirror. That the Commanders will know how to play the Ravens, and the Ravens will know how to play the Commanders, basically by just being at practice, watching their, respective quarterbacks. And at the end of the day, this is a home game for us. The last time we were at home, we blew out a very good Bills team. I do not think we will blow out this Commander team, because I think this Commander team has a lot more gumption and more talent on different sides of the ball. But I'll take the Ravens at home because of how we usually do against rookies, and I just think the home field advantage with that combined should be able to get us the victory. And I'm going to give the Commanders their props and take them with the 6.5 because I feel like this could be a very, unique shootout like last week, which, would be concerning for the Ravens defense because that's basically back-to-back weeks now to where our defense is giving up a lot of points. But I think at the end of the day, the Ravens find a way to win with some grit or maybe one more big run. And also, we have Derrick Henry. They do not. And I think that could be the X factor in managing the game and controlling the clock. So that's like Baltimore here straight up, but Washington +6.5. The next game, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Denver Broncos. This is a game where, honestly, I'm going with the better quarterback. The Broncos roster and the Chargers roster, currently with injuries and all that, are about even, And I would take Sean Payton over Jim Harbaugh at this point, coaching-wise. But I'm going to take Justin Herbert to outplay Bo Nix. Herbert should be healthier. He had another week to heal his ankle, and he played okay. Jesse Minter's been doing a fantastic job on the defensive side of the ball, so Bo Nix should have a very tough game. And look, I've been impressed with Bo Nix out of the rookie quarterbacks that started. He's made some incremental gains. He hasn't made Jaden strides or even Caleb strides. in terms of improving, but he's made incremental gains that, like, 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's played solid football. Take out the Jets game, he was god-awful. He shouldn't have won that game, and he got lucky. But, like, I'm seeing stuff with Bo Nix and, Vance Joseph. This defense is balling. Patrick Surtain, 2 huge interceptions, held the Raiders to 18 points, got the Raiders to bench their quarterback. But I'd show you again, like, you were playing Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. This time you're playing Justin Herbert and a Charger team that desperately needs a win because the Broncos, let's put it this way, if the Broncos get their 4th straight win and the Chargers suffer their 3rd straight loss, we're going to have to start looking at both these teams very differently. And this will probably be my hot take for everybody out there. The Denver Broncos are arguably, if they win, depending on how the rest of the week, they're probably the 5th best team in the AFC right now. And I will say it again, the 5th best team in the AFC behind the Chiefs, the Texans, the Ravens. I would argue. Then I would argue Pittsburgh, or Buffalo, and then I'd probably put Denver at 5, depending on what happens. I probably put, even though I know Pittsburgh beat Denver because I have Pittsburgh at 6, but I'd probably put Denver arguably a top 5 team in the AFC through 6 weeks if they beat this Charger team. Yeah, that's 4 straight wins, and you're seeing consistent stuff with this Denver defense. And Bo Nix is playing managing football. It's not, earth-shattering, but it's something that you can hold your hand on. So, but in this game, like, with the rosters being about the same, I'm going to take the better quarterback. I think the Denver run ends at 3. The Chargers come back. But I think the Chargers get a bit off the schneid, and they feel better, and I'll take the Chargers -3 in that regard. So, that's like the Los Angeles Chargers here -3, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. The next game, the Steelers over the Raiders. The Raiders just don't have anything. They're about to trade Devontae Adams maybe today or tomorrow. The Raiders don't have anything defensively. The Raiders really can't have a running game. They're not going to have a quarterback. And the Steelers, for as well as they played, okay, and I would push the Russ thing, okay, for me personally. I think Russell Wilson's a better pure quarterback than Justin Fields. Even though I think with the offensive line at this point, having the weapons, I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference. And I would personally start Russell Wilson. Because I think in a vacuum, Russell's a better quarterback. But I feel like Russ, in that regard, is going to... I think the difference is that Justin usually, in a weird way, I feel like he has more athleticism and is more dominant in that regard, which I think is helping them move forward. And I think that's why I would keep that. But if they lose to the Raiders, Russ is going to be in the game against the Jets next Sunday night in Pittsburgh once again. I'd probably still take the Jets regardless, because I'll just trust Rodgers, but who knows. But this game should be a nice, walk-in game. The Raiders will have very little Raider fans in there in that stadium due to the Steelers traveling very well. And I think with that defense, with how they've been playing and the lack of offensive weapons, the Raiders will have. The Steelers go into Las Vegas and end their losing streak of 2. So that's like Pittsburgh here -3 and Pittsburgh straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Dallas Cowboys. The Lions are going to be a well-rested team. They're on a bye. They're going to get some of their players back. I think their offense should be able to move against the Cowboys defense very well. And I think the Lions defense will a week of rest, getting some of their assets back. They should be able to hold the limited Cowboys offense much more effectively. Though they did have Kenneth Walker have a huge game, I don't think they're going to have to worry about Rico and Zeke running, through the Lions' defensive line at nearly as bad. But I'm going to take Dallas here +3.5 because I just don't know. Like, the Lions, they're 3-1. They've played well, but they've had their moments where they lost to Tampa. They had a weird game against Arizona, and week 1, you could argue they almost should have lost to the Rams, who didn't have anybody out there. So, but that's why I like Detroit here straight up at Dallas +3.5. Finally, the last 3 games, Atlanta over Carolina. Carolina is the worst team in the NFC. Atlanta, after so many weeks of not trusting them, I am going to take them this week because they're just fundamentally and clearly better than the Carolina Panthers. And if the Carolina Panthers somehow beat the Falcons, I'm going to be really upset because it's like I just can't pick the Falcons right at all this year to save my life. So, but that's why I like Atlanta here -6 and Atlanta straight up. Cincinnati over New York. I'm taking Cincinnati here based on the fact that, look, the Giants, they could win this game because the Giants defense has played very well. And also, I just look at the Giants and go, like, that's a fundamentally better team. And take out week 1. They've played pretty much 4 solid weeks of football. I just think the problem is that if you're the Giants, Daniel Jones has played well enough that he's going to upgrade from being an absolute bad quarterback to being a tease. And that's a problem because that's going to probably convince Shane and Daboll that they can keep Daniel Jones another year, but that's the problem. He's a tease. So we all know what Daniel Jones' stealing is, and it's not good enough, in my opinion, to win in this situation. But, I'm going to take Cincinnati here, just a better offense, trust them enough, and I just don't think the Giants, if the Ravens can get into shootouts, the Commanders can get into shootouts, if the Giants can get into a shootout with the Bengals, then you're going to have to fire Lou Anarumo, and this season for the Bengals is absolutely cooked because Joe Burrow can't be playing any better than he is right now, and they still can't win games. So that's like Cincinnati minus 3.5. It's Cincinnati straight up. And lastly, the Bills over the Jets. The Jets look god-awful in kind of a weird way offensively. The Bills looked okay, but the clock management was bad. But in this regard, if both teams are about the same, where, solid running games, awkward offensive lines, weird coaching, even though McDermott's a better coach than Saleh, I'm going to go with the better quarterback from what I've seen. And that, to me, is Josh Allen over the Jets, though. I am kind of a little trepidatious because I know Josh Allen's history against Robert Saleh's Jets defense. It's a bad one. It's a consistently bad one since he started. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets won, but I'm taking the Bills here just because I saw a lot more grit and fight out of the Bills than I saw out of the Jets. And I just trust that Josh Allen is playing at a higher level right now compared to Aaron Rodgers. So that's like Buffalo here, minus 2.5, and Buffalo straight up. So that is it. So good luck to all players, coaches, teams, fellow prognosticators, and fantasy players this weekend. And like I said, my video will come out next Tuesday, and I am off next Tuesday, so I should be able to give a longer, fuller, traditional 1-hour video where I'll tell everybody about about all my thoughts about every game in the 15-game slate that is set up for Week 7. So that is it. So until next time, everyone, this is Matthew Max signing off. Until then, so long.